Hello guys, Toast here, and in today's video I will be going over a lot of tips, tricks, and interactions regarding the Vanquish Soul K9 strategy. Make sure to follow the video all the way up to the end, where I will also be showcasing some standard side patterns regarding the deck. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So first things first, you have to keep in mind that all Vanquish Soul monsters cannot use their effects in the same chain. For example, if you use the first effective Raisin, you cannot be using the second effective Raisin to reveal in the same chain. This goes for every single Vanquish Soul monster without exception, in the main deck at least. And those interactions can be helpful where if you use the Holy Sue's effect in hand to reveal itself, summon, and you already have another Holy Sue, the opponent can like chain and remove the Holy Sue on the field without you being able to like chain the effect. Or if your Holy Sue was like holding up one of their interactions where they couldn't choose, for example, Snatchy effect to Synchro, if you use a Holy Sue in hand, they can go for Synchro effect and you would not be able to chain the Holy Sue. Second thing is, Raisin's second effect to destroy all cards in this monster's column will require Raisin to remain in that same column to pop. So for example, if you go Raisin and then you chain Heavy Borger or Seasonal Various to it, your Raisin will not be able to pop a single thing because it's no longer in that column. Third thing is Madlov's effects. Everyone knows about the effect to bounce the opponent's cards in back to your hand or their hand, but I've seen that a lot of people do not use the first effect, which is, in my opinion, just as important. It's an effect that can be used in damage step, so you can like hit over monsters and you can like threaten battle phase with it as well without the opponent being able to chain. For example, if they have a Cookie Yummy Way, the 1600 attack monster, and you can normal summon Madlove, no effect to add to not trigger it, go battle phase, reveal a dark in damage step, and hit over it, and that can come up. Fourth, Holy Sue's effects can be comboed with that Mad Love effect. So you can go Chain Link 1 Holy Sue to take control of a monster, and then Chain Link 2 Vanquish Soul Mad Love to reduce the attack of a monster so that you can have a wider variety of which monster to take, which can be helpful if they have like, for example, a 1000 attack monster that's preventing you from taking their 1400 attack monster attack. Another thing is you can steal cards in the mirror and get their effects as well. So for example, you can steal the opponent's Jokul if they have that on the field, for example, and you can get their effect. You can steal the opponent's Izuna Lupus and go for Ripper with that. The range of what you can do is basically endless. Number 5, a lot of people do not use the effect of Jiaolong, the first effect. They do not use it enough. This effect is especially strong versus Valon. I've seen a lot of games where the opponent will go Valon and they will like book your Lupus, book your Zuna, book your Holy Sue, and you have Jiaolong and you just don't do anything about it. Jiaolong can change monsters from face down defense position to attack position or defense position, which can help basically unbook your monster, which can somehow, sometimes save your entire game. Number 6, you can sometimes use the first effective Caesar values instead of the second effect. So in the usual line where you go Holy Sue Fire Dark, you special summon Raisin, Raisin gets a pop, and then you get the Caesar values per pop. A lot of people just go for the pop, but it's also equally as important to like call Earth, revealing the Holy Sue, and make sure that that Caesar values is staying on the field as a mini Pancratops, for example, which is especially strong versus Yummy. More strong than if you just popped one of their cards, especially because they can't like out the monster at all if it's unaffected. And if they try to like stop it from being unaffected, it will either take too many resources or it's not even possible. Number 7, Stake Your Soul. The monster that it summons will return to hand, but you choose when it returns to hand. So interactions where you have 2 Vanquish Soul monsters and one of them is summoned by stake, you can choose to set with the Vanquish Soul start and then choose to return the monster to hand. You can also choose to set and then do a lot of other interactions. You can like do effect to bounce, whatever, and then go for Stake Your Soul. Thus, in some game states, you can have like a Fualos, right? And you go Stake Your Soul, Stick Your Soul summons something, and then that something adds Mad Love. Mad Love effect, normal summon, you can add like Trap, and then you set the trap, end phase, Mad Love bounce, the Stick Your Soul monster bounces back to hand, and then you use Snow Devil as interruption, and then you can also like follow slash brutal your opponent while also still getting enough monsters to make your Vanquish Soul engine live against it, into their turn. Number 8, the monster targeted by the field spell has to remain on the field. So interactions like Nib will make it not add. If you chain your Caesar Values or Heavy Borger, or if the opponent removes the monster from the field, you will not be able to add any monster, because the field spell has to check the attribute of the monster, so it has to remain on the field for it to check the attribute of that monster. Number 9 is you always try to use the effect of Izuna on field on the opponent's turn, regardless of whether you have Lupus or not. A lot of people will summon the Izuna and not use the effect because, oh, I already have Lupus. But what if your opponent has a Ash Blossom, for example, or a way to deal with the Izuna? What then, right? You just basically lost your interruption because you already told your opponent, hey, I already have Lupus, by not using the effect of Izuna. And in that case, where you do, you usually try to send Force Release, because Force Release being in your deck is a brick, but it can always like get itself back to your field, which I will mention in the following tips. Number 10 is Lupus alone. While it is the Lord of Bricks, it's not a brick per se in some matchups. For example, I will give 2 examples as a matter of fact. Example number 1 is in the Yummy matchup, just one Lupus can break their entire board. You may ask yourself how. You allow them to play if they go for... This is usually in Obedience School because they can't like set up the Herald. So you would go Lupus effect, overlay for Typhon. On your turn, Typhon attacks. So far, they cannot do anything. If they set up a Herald, you can just attack over the Herald at that point. And then you go main phase 2, overlay Zeus, first action Zeus with priority, wipe the entire field. That is also extremely strong versus Dracotail if they do not set up seals, because they cannot remove the Typhon by targeting with the trap because it's untargetable with Lupus's effect. And that will not only go to the Typhon, it will also go to the Zeus. So if you make, for example, another Xyz monster and then you overlay Zeus on top, as long as Lupus is one of the materials, that monster cannot be targeted. Number 11 is, although everyone knows at this point in the format that Case of K9 is the best way to set your Force Release, unless you set it with Ripper, what is good to keep in mind is that it can set it from field or graveyard. This is very important for cases where you sent the card with your Izuna or you've already used the card. And again, even if in our deck list, I'm not playing like more targets, your deck list can play them, so it can come up. And you can like choose to play them as well if such a situation would come up way too many times. And yeah, another thing is Mutually Assured Destruction. This card, I will go over it, even though it's not a Vanquish Soul card, but it is one of the cards that people will be siding against us, and one of the cards will be siding against them in the mirror as well. This card is extremely strong. So I've made a small list of cards that cannot be used while Mutually Assured Destruction is in effect. Those cards are Stake Your Soul, Jokul, Holy Sue, all of its effects, Jiaolong, first effect, because we're gonna try to use Mutually Assured Destruction before main phase. And since all the reveal effects are main phase only effects, the ones that get the monster on the field, so Holy Sue, Caesar Values to target, Heavy Borger, all these effects are main phase only effects. So Jiaolong's effect will not be able to be used as well unless you manage to somehow chain a monster effect that reveals a Vanquish Soul name, such as like if you already had a trap, right? All Vanquish Soul secondary effects, all of them cannot be used under Mutually Assured Destruction. Snow Devil as well. It also has the secondary effect of preventing your opponent from using card effects. So if you have, for example, an Izuna in your hand, your opponent, as you can see, if both players have a card in the same name in their hands, neither player can activate cards with that name or their effect. So while they have the Izuna in their hand, they cannot use the effects of Izuna. While they have a Raisin in their hand, they cannot use the effects of Raisin, so forth, so on and so forth. As long as you have that same monster in your hand, and that also applies to hand traps. So if you have a hand trap and they have the same hand trap, they cannot be used in theirs. Going on to tip number 13, Rock of the Vanquisher has an effect where your opponent cannot only target monsters you control with the highest attack, but that's only while you control the Vanquish Soul monsters. I've seen a lot of illegal game states where the opponent will still think that they're like only allowed to attack the highest attack monster, but the opponent does not have a Vanquish Soul monster. And the way this comes up a lot is when your opponent attempts to end main phase. If you think you're protected with the effect, but you do not have a Vanquish Soul monster, your opponent can just remove your Rock of the Vanquisher without you getting the effect, because it's also main phase only. Tip number 14 is Nash Knight is a main phase only effect, and C Nash Knight cannot be destroyed by card effects. So C Nash Knight, the effect where it's protected by card effects is good into Raisin. If you go first action Raisin, first action make CXCs with Nash Knight. It's also good into Pan. So a lot of the time, other than like turn one where we're going to use C Nash Knight to go into Big Masquerade, we can also use C Nash Knight for Zeus, which is extremely important. And to like segue that into tip number 15, a notable play that you can do with Zeus is you can go on the opponent's turn, Izuna for Lupus, make Nash Knight, not use the Nash Knight effect. And again, these are in matchups where the opponent cannot out your Xyz monster because of Lupus's targeting protection. And in those matchups, aka usually Dracotail or Yummy, if you find yourself in that game state, you do not use the effect of Nash Knight on your turn. You go overlay for CXC's Nash Knight, cannot be destroyed by card effect and cannot be targeted, and then you go into Zeus. Zeus detaches the two Xyzes, or you can detach like Izuna and one of the Xyzes. And since you already still have Lupus under it, it cannot be targeted, so you can wipe your entire opponent's field as well as have Zeus as either interruption or as protection if, like, for example, your Raisin gets impermed or like your Holy Sue summon from deck gets hit as well. Tip number 16, and we've seen this in the YCS, Ghost Ogre hits Paradise hard. It makes the odds even instead of the odds being 92 to 8. Or rather 92 to like 5 and like a chance of them drawing as well. And the reason is the Paradise Smasher has to be on the field to apply the secondary effect while it has materials. And yeah, Princess Kunkury's effect to revive is usually used to make your Vanquish Soul start live, as well as have your Vanquish Soul monster on the field. Notably, if you have like a Jiaolong in the graveyard and 2 fires, you can like special summon Jiaolong on the opponent's turn, you get the search, and then you can search either Holy Suit or something that you're missing. And that is a lot better than like ending on a Valon, because I see a lot of players try to like make Valon as part of their end board if they have like too many cards. Like if you have Nash Knight and you've either kept the Nash Knight or made it into Umbral Horror Masquerade and you have more bodies, a lot of the time I see people making Valon. That's just not smart in my opinion. It's a lot better to either A, make Princess Kunkury for follow-up and for like Vanquish Soul start, or B, not even use the Lantern regardless. You can get access to Force Release without using Lantern's effect. Right? Because the interaction is, if you want to keep Lantern as follow-up, Ripper can add Case of K9, and then Case of K9 can add like the Yokel, and then the Yokel can add the Lantern. And then when you mix Umbral Horror Masquerade and use the first effect, which is another tip to keep in mind, use the first effect to target a spell trap card on the field. You target your Case of K9, and then you get your Force Release, and you still keep Lantern, which is extremely good follow-up for your next turn, because Lantern can target Yokel, and then Yokel can add back can add Izuna from deck, and now you have like Izuna with 2 level 5s on the field. Next tip is the K9 engine allows you not only to get more interruptions, it can also allow you to get 2 of the 3 attributes, aka the Dark by searching Lantern or Yokel. It can also allow you to get the Earth by searching Izuna or Lupus. The importance of that is, as mentioned in the last tip, is a lot of the times you will be adding cards like Yokel or Lantern, or like an extra add in Lupus when you already have Izuna, as just attributes or follow up or something of the sort, instead of trying to add like how can I say, instead of trying to like get more cards on the field, you're just saving those cards in your hand. Because if you let your opponent break your field and you have no follow up, then the opponent's job is a lot easier. And if the opponent is on sort of a board breaker build and they like drove extremely well, they can now win. Whereas the reason this deck is very strong into board breakers, and why a lot of people have dropped the board breaker approach, is even if you go end of main phase, evenly them for their life savings, the things that they have in hand and the fact that you no longer have battle phase to deal with all the opponent's bodies make it so that you're not winning that game state, even though you removed all the opponent's interruptions on the field. So if after you've done that, they go Holy Sue, someone from that get Raisin, Raisin gets Caesar, Caesar gets back the Holy Sue in hand for next turn, and then they have like Izuna for Lupus, and they have all these bodies on the field that you cannot deal with. All of a sudden, you're not winning, regardless of how many like board breakers you manage to draw in your hand. Which is also why the next tip is you always try to sequence your plays, your Vanquish Soul plays, into bridging into the K9 engine. Because the K9 engine is follow up, interruption, and it's layered interruption. Because it's interruption that you put on the field, the Ripper, and it's interruption that it adds to the hand, the Izuna. So if they want to deal with that, they need multiple cards. There's no one card that's going to deal with both the Ripper on the field and the Izuna in the hand, unless they wait with the Ripper and then you droplet both of them, right? That's why a lot of times, like in hands where you have Raisin, Fire, and then either a Dark or Holy Sue, you would go Raisin, add back a Holy Sue, and then you would go Link 1, add back the Raisin, Holy Sue, special summon itself, and then reveal the Dark and the Fire to special summon Jiaolong and not Madlove, and then Jiaolong will add the field spell, and then you will bridge, and then you will activate field spell to add another level 5, and then you will bridge both these into Ripper. Ripper adds Jokel. Jokel reveals the Holy Sue, whatever you add it back, and that allows you to make the entire K9 end board, because that allows you to get case set in forced release. It allows you to end on like cards in your hand as well in that game state, because you will get to Izuna in hand as well, and that's like more important than you going like special Mad Love instead and set in the trap, at least in my humble opinion. And for the last tip, try not to end on too many interruption. This deck is a deck that you need to play a bit more conservative. You should not just throw up every card in your hand just because you can. Another thing is, if you have like a very, very strong hand, try to play it as if it's not that strong. So if, for example, you have like a talents in your hand and you have like a Raisin Madlove, Raisin or Madlove, right? And you have like a live Yokel, starting with Yokel will make the opponent like not use their hand traps. And if the opponent does not use their hand traps, you're not gaining value. You want your opponent to respond to your effect, and then you have the extender afterwards. So you're trying to bait the opponent into doing that with their interruptions so that they can go minus. Obviously, if you full combo, you're probably winning the game. But if you're not, then you need to make the opponent spend a lot of resources, or spend all the resources on breaking your board while you have enough follow-up to make another board again. And that's how you manage to win the matchup. And that is it for the tips and tricks. Before we end the video, I will be showing you guys, because I've gotten a lot of requests after I've shown you guys the Malice siding patterns, I'm going to be showing you guys some siding patterns. This is just a general idea. Follow your heart, right? But this is what I personally do. So I will show the siding patterns going first, and I will also show some going second. Going first, this is what I will do almost all of the time, because I'm playing 6 Charmies. All these Charmies need to go. I know some people keep Charmies for like Holy Sue or like Izuna or things like that. I don't honestly think that's a good idea to keep Charmies like that, because again, they're bricks. and B, if the opponent does not have those cards, you're going -1. If you go like Perulia or Fualos in draw phase, and the opponent manages to stop your turn with just like Ash, Imperm, Veiler, Nib, Droll, etc., you just went minus. Like imagine you go Perulia, you normal summon Raisin, add, or like Rota, add, and you get Drolled. All of a sudden you're not the happiest camper out there. So I will be taking out these cards, and I will be putting in my thrusts, my called by talents, and either Black Goat Lash versus every matchup that isn't Vanquish Soul K9 or Mutually for Destruction versus K9. I do not side in Bell going first into Dracotail or Malice, because I believe that my engine is strong enough to beat those cards, and Nibiru is just a stronger card regardless. This card can be stronger than Ash, but Ash has two positive aspects about it. Positive aspect number one is it deals with Charmies, and positive aspect number two is it is a fire, which is scarcity around these parts. As for the other siding patterns, we have this. This siding pattern is what I would do against Malice when I am going second. I am taking out a lot of engine. You can take out Xiaolong instead of Rota, because Rota is more consistency and Xiaolong is a brick. But the positive of Xiaolong staying there is that it's a fire. If you have Holy Suit Dark in a Rota, it's a bit rough. There's also like the option of not putting in ghost spells and just keeping a lot of engine. But again, into a deck like Malice, you do not want them to play. You need to stop them from actually getting their engine going so that you can like overwhelm them on your turn. This is the siding pattern that I would do going second into the Vanquish Soul deck, right? So if I'm going second into Vanquish Soul, this is what I'm putting. Again, I'm not putting any of the other cards. I'm not putting Call By because that hits me as well. I don't think Duster is good enough, because if they set up a board where Duster matters, you're not winning that game, because that means that they full comboed. However, these cards are cards that are going to be very good if the opponent is not full combo, right? Because if the opponent ends on like a mediocre board where they just like end on like Holy Suit with attributes, they end on like just Ripper, Zuna, like they end on a board that isn't the full board, and you have good engine, these cards will help push you through. The other cards do not. This is the siding pattern when you go second versus Dracotail. So versus Dracotail, I do put in Duster even though it's not like the best card. The reason I put Duster in is A, it's better than the other cards I'm taking out, and B, a lot of the time you will have like one spell that's good in your hand as well as the Duster, and you'd rather like either A, Duster force their interruptions if you have Ash or Bell, which I do play right now, at least I'm testing out the card, and B, it can also deal with like Peekaboo, Gozen, Rivalry, which are cards that I've seen some lists like play either 1, 2, or even like 3 of those in the Dracotail strategy. I've obviously we put in the one-off shifter, and Bell is a card that I'm testing right now because from my point of view, it's a card that's very good into Yummy, because you can hit the Yummy effects on your turn when they go to revive 2 from the grave, sorry. And they can also hit the traps of Dracotail, as well as if they're not that good of a player and they go Arthalion as Chainlink, last Chainlink, like Chainlink 2 or 3 or whatever it is, last Chainlink, you can actually bell the Arthalion as long as it targets the card in the graveyard. And last but not least, versus Yummy, because these are the big decks, in my opinion. I don't think the other decks are that real. Versus Yummy, I'm trying out this new thing where I will side out the entirety of K9. I'm playing pure Vanquish Soul when I'm going second against them, because each and every single one of these cards can help either A, stop them from playing, and B, like allow you to actually like break their board. So for example, Bell can stop them from like continuing to synchro on your turn by removing 2 bodies. Shifter can just stop them from setting up, period, because they can just they will lose their follow-up, and they will also not be able to like use their revive effect. Duster, called by for Snatchy, talents to take, And if they chain to synchro, you can take the synchro monster. Just keep in mind that if you do that, they get to activate that monster's effect. So if you take like the guy that sets monsters, Cookie Yamiwe, they can use Cookie Yamiwe on your field to set your monsters. You have to keep that in mind. And thrust to add either engine or to add talents, etc., regardless of what you need. And yeah, that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys have tuned in up until this point, thank you a lot. And if there's any ideas or videos that you guys would like to see next, please make sure to let me know. And that is it. Have a good day, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one.